The last transmission from Mars Colony Epsilon came at 0342 Earth Standard Time, a garbled warning about massive ships and strange light, then nothing but static. 12 minutes later, the colony's 7,000 inhabitants ceased to exist, vaporized in a flash of quantum fire that turned the red soil to glass for 17 kilometers in every direction. Admiral Octavia Ryden stood before the World Security Council, her weathered face illuminated by the holographic replay of Mars. Colony's final moments. Her silver-streaked hair was pulled back in a severe bun, her uniform crisp despite 72 sleepless hours. "They mistook us for the Zerai," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the United Nations chamber. "Intelligence co-confirms. The Vecturian Empire believed our Mars colony was a military installation belonging to their ancient enemies." Counselor Ekene Nwadike of the African Union leaned forward. "A case of mistaken identity? They obliterated 7,000 civilians over mistaken identity?" "Yes, Counselor. The Vecturians have been at war with the Zerai Collective for centuries. Their intelligence suggested the Zerai had established a forward base in our system." The chamber erupted in outrage. Admiral Ryden waited for the clamor to subside before continuing. "When they realized their error, the Vecturian commander, High Executor Mordecai, sent this." She gestured, and a new hologram appeared. The alien was humanoid, but with silver-blue skin and eyes that reflected light like a cat's. "Humans of Terra." The translation overlay read, "The regrettable destruction of your Martian outpost was an unfortunate error. The Vecturian Empire offers 12,000 units of galactic standard currency as compensation for your loss. We trust this concludes the matter." Silence fell over the chamber, heavy and suffocating. Chief Scientist Kieran Varela cleared his throat. "They value our lives at less than 2 units per person. And they expect us to just accept this?" Ambassador Lena Jo whispered. "No, Admiral," Ryden said, her words like ice. "They expect us to have no choice. Their civilization spans 17 star systems. They possess technology centuries beyond ours. They expect us to be primitive, fearful creatures who will bow and scrape at the first demonstration of superior firepower." Fleet Commander Darius Vesic, a stocky man with a prosthetic right arm, legacy of the Kashmir orbital conflict, stood. "We have no starships that can challenge them, no weapons that can pierce their defenses. What can we possibly do?" "Admiral," Ryden's eyes gleamed with something that made the room grow still. "The Vecturians made 3 critical errors," she said. "First, they killed our people. Second, they assumed their technological superiority makes them invincible." She paused. "And third, they failed to study our history. They don't understand what humans do when cornered." She activated another display showing schematics of something. "Called Project Nemesis. Humanity has been preparing for alien contact, hostile or otherwise, since the Cold War. We've been developing contingencies that don't require fancy faster-than-light drives or quantum cannons." Her smile was devoid of warmth. "The Vecturians chose the wrong target, and now they'll learn what Earth's vengeance looks like." In orbit above Venus, hidden by the planet's thick atmosphere, the research vessel Prometheus received its activation codes. Inside, Dr. Freya Kastner looked at her team, then at the alien artifact they had reverse-engineered over the past decade, salvaged from a crash site in the Gobi Desert. "It's time," she said simply. The race to save humanity had begun. The Vecturian outpost on Ganymede had stood for less than an Earth month, a temporary research station to monitor the primitives and ensure they accepted their place in the galactic hierarchy. Sub-Commander Zelthron found the posting beneath his abilities, but one did not question High Executor Mordecai's orders. "Another communication from the humans," his adjutant reported. "They're requesting a direct meeting." Zelthron flicked a dismissive hand. "Standard response. We will address their concerns when convenient." "Sir, This is the 14th request in as many hours. Their persistence is tiresome, Zelthrin sighed. Very well. Establish a connection. The view screen flickered to life, showing a human female with light brown skin and striking amber eyes. I am Imara Okafor, Special Envoy of the United Earth Government, she said without preamble. We request immediate evacuation of your Ganymede facility. Zelthran blinked his secondary eyelids in amusement. You request we evacuate? By what authority? By the authority of basic survival instinct, Okafor replied evenly. Jupiter's electromagnetic field is about to experience a severe disruption. Your facility will be subjected to radiation levels that will penetrate even Vecturian shielding. Our sensors detect no such anomaly, Zelthran said. This is a transparent attempt to... The disruption will begin in approximately 7 minutes, Okafor interrupted. We have specialized detection equipment calibrated specifically for Jupiter's unique field patterns, equipment you lack. We are offering this warning as a gesture of diplomacy despite your actions at Mars Colony Epsilon, Zelthran bristled. You presume to... 6 minutes, 40 seconds now, Okafor said. The choice is yours, Subcommander. The communication ended abruptly. Preposterous, Zelthran muttered. Run a full-spectrum analysis of Jupiter's magnetosphere. As his crew scrambled to comply, a junior science officer approached nervously. Sir, I've been analyzing the humans' communications network. They've been evacuating their Jupiter mining platforms for the past 12 hours. Whatever they believe is coming, they're taking it seriously. Zelthran hesitated. The Empire couldn't afford another diplomatic incident if the humans were actually trying to help. Prepare the shuttle. We'll relocate temporarily to the battlecruiser. 5 minutes and 27 seconds after Okafor's warning, 9 modified fusion devices strategically placed in Jupiter's upper atmosphere detonated simultaneously. The resulting electromagnetic pulse was magnified 1,000-fold by the gas giant's natural field, creating a storm of charged particles that engulfed Ganymede. The Vecturian outpost, only half evacuated, was scoured down to its molecular foundation. Their orbiting battlecruiser, though heavily shielded, suffered catastrophic systems failures as radiation breached every compartment. In her office on Luna Base, Imara Okafor received the confirmation and opened a secure channel to Admiral Ryden. Phase 1 complete, she reported. The Vecturian presence in our system has been reduced by 60%. Their main battle group remains near Neptune, but we've established our capabilities. Casualties? Ryden asked. None on our side. Vecturian losses approximately 400. Ryden nodded grimly. The Vecturians will realize this wasn't a natural phenomenon. They'll retaliate. We're counting on it, Okafor replied. Dr. Kastner reports Project Nemesis is ready for Phase 2. As if on cue, sensors across the solar system detected multiple Vecturian warships accelerating toward Earth. On Venus, Dr. Kastner monitored her instruments as the salvaged alien device hummed too. Life, its crystalline structure pulsing with strange energies. They're coming, she whispered to her second-in-command, Dr. Akiro Nakamura, just as we planned. The bait has been taken, Nakamura confirmed. Now the real test begins. High Executor Mordecai's flagship, the Celestial Judgment, emerged from FTL on the edge of Earth's gravity well, 8 additional warships flanking it in perfect formation. The massive vessel's hull gleamed with the iridescent sheen of polarized quantum armor, impervious to any weapon humanity could possibly possess. On the command deck, Mordecai stared at the blue-green planet displayed on the view screen, his expression unreadable. The humans have proven unexpectedly resourceful, he acknowledged to his war council. The Jupiter maneuver was creative, but this ends now. High Executor, his strategic officer ventured, intelligence suggests this was not a desperate last stand but part of a coordinated campaign. Perhaps we should consider what? Mordecai interrupted. Negotiating? Apologizing? The Empire does not bow to primitives. The humans need to understand their place in the cosmos. He gestured sharply, and tactical displays appeared around him. We will target their largest military installations first. Once their capacity for resistance is gone, we'll demand unconditional surrender. Any further defiance will result in the systematic destruction of their population centers. Incoming. Transmission from Earth, announced the communications officer. Mordecai settled into his command throne. Let's hear there, please. The screen shifted to show Admiral Ryden, her expression composed despite the fate hanging over her world. High Executor, she acknowledged with a slight nod. I'll be brief. You've made an error in judgment that threatens your entire species. The Vecturian Empire ends today unless you withdraw immediately from our system. Mordecai stared at her for 3 full heartbeats, then laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Your audacity is remarkable, human. You face a civilization thousands of years more advanced than your own, yet you speak of our destruction? We've studied the fragment of Zarai technology we recovered, Ryden replied simply. We understand how your quantum shields function. More importantly, we understand their fundamental weakness. Something cold slithered down Mordecai's spine, but he kept his expression neutral. You're bluffing. Humanity has always excelled at turning our enemies' strengths against them. She leaned forward. Last chance, High Executor. Leave our system, acknowledge your crime against Mars colony, and we'll consider this matter closed. Mordecai slammed a fist on his armrest. You dare dictate terms to the Vecturian Empire? Deploy. Primary weapons array. Target their largest military complex. As the transmission ended, Mordecai's tactical officer reported, Strange energy readings from Venus, High Executor. Something is... The officer never finished his sentence. On the Prometheus, Dr. Kastner activated the final sequence. The recovered Zarai device, what humans had dubbed the harmonic resonator, broadcast a precisely calculated frequency that propagated through subspace. Quantum shields operated by creating a perfect harmony with the fabric of space-time. The resonator introduced a discordant note into that symphony. Across all 9 Vecturian vessels, quantum armor flickered and failed. Systems crashed as the resonance cascades spread through their networks. Ships designed to withstand the fury of supernovae were suddenly as vulnerable as paper to flame. In Earth orbit, Fleet Commander Vesic gave the order. All units, weapons free. 5,000 conventional missiles, technology dating back to the 21st century, launched from hidden silos on Earth, Luna, and orbital platforms. The Vecturians, so confident in their invulnerable shields, had never developed point defense systems against such primitive weaponry. The celestial judgment shuddered as the first impacts tore through its hull. Mordecai gripped his command throne, watching in disbelief as his mighty fleet burned. Impossible, he whispered. Shields at maximum, evasive maneuvers. But it was too late. The cascade was complete. Their technology turned against them. The flagship's reactor went critical as missiles continued to find their mark. Mordecai had just enough time to realize that the humans had never been bluffing at all. The remains of the Vecturian fleet burned in Earth's orbit, a new constellation of artificial stars that would glow for weeks as debris scattered and disintegrated in the atmosphere. Of the 9 warships that had arrived to subjugate humanity, only 2 damaged vessels had managed to flee, limping away on auxiliary power to carry news of the catastrophe back to the Empire. In the Strategic Command Center beneath Mount Denali, Admiral Ryden watched the disaster unfold with no sense of triumph. 7,000 souls on Mars remained unavenged, and the battle was far from over. We've bloodied their nose, Fleet Commander Vesic observed, standing beside her. But you know, what happens when you wound a predator without killing it? They'll be back, Ryden agreed. And next time, they won't underestimate us. The door slid open, and Imara Okafor entered, accompanied by Dr. Kastner. The scientist looked haggard, her eyes sunken from exhaustion. "The resonator has been depleted," Kastner reported without preamble. "The Zarai artifact burned itself out just as our models predicted." Ryden nodded grimly. "Then our one advantage is gone." "Not necessarily," Kastner countered, brushing a strand of graying hair from her face. "We've collected enough data from this deployment to potentially replicate the technology. But it will take time, months at least." "Time we don't have," Vesic growled. "The main Vecturian fleet will arrive within weeks when they learn what happened here." Okafor stepped forward, her diplomatic demeanor giving way to something harder. "Then we bring the fight to them before they can regroup. The escaping vessels are damaged. We can track their energy signatures." "Track them how?" Vesic demanded. "We don't have FTL capability." Dr. Kastner exchanged a meaningful glance with Admiral Ryden, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. "Actually," Kastner said quietly, "we do." 3 hours later, the inner circle gathered in a secure briefing room. Holograms displayed a vessel unlike anything in Earth's known arsenal, sleek and predatory, with design elements that seemed both human and distinctly alien. "Project Harbinger," Admiral Ryden announced. "Our first true starship." "Impossible," Vesic breathed. "We're decades away from viable FTL technology." "Not decades," corrected Dr. Nakamura, stepping forward. "Just 1 decade of dedicated reverse engineering. After the Gobi crash, we recovered more than just the resonator. We found a partially intact drive system." Kieran Varela, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "You've kept this secret from the World Security Council?" "From everyone," Ryden confirmed without apology. "Compartmentalization was essential. If the Vecturians had learned of its existence through any intelligence leak, they would have destroyed it immediately." Okafor studied the hologram carefully. "One ship against an empire?" "One ship carrying the most devastating weapon humanity has ever conceived," Kastner replied. "Nemesis isn't just a project name, it's an acronym. Nucleonic Entropic Mass Extinction System." The room fell silent as the implication sank in. "You're talking about genocide," Counselor Nwadiki said softly. Admiral Ryden's expression remained impassive. "I'm talking about survival. The Vecturians won't stop until we're eliminated. They can't afford to let us live now that we've proven ourselves capable of defeating them." "There must be alternatives," Ambassador Joe insisted. "Diplomatic channels were exhausted the moment they dismissed 7,000 human lives as an unfortunate error." Ryden interrupted. "This isn't about vengeance. It's about sending a message to the galaxy. Target humanity at your own peril." In a facility hidden beneath the Pacific Ocean, engineers and technicians worked feverishly to prepare Harbinger for launch. Captain Ilara Voss, selected to command the mission, studied the service records of the volunteer crew. Every person aboard would be sacrificing everything. Even if they succeeded, the one-way nature of the mission was clear to all. As she memorized their faces, Voss wondered if they were about to save humanity's future or forfeit its soul. Captain Ilara Voss had never seen the stars like this. Brilliant points of perfect light, undimmed by atmosphere. The Harbinger sliced through the void at speeds that made mockery of Einstein's supposedly immutable laws, the experimental FTL drive humming with energies barely understood by its human operators. "Status report," she ordered, her voice steady despite the knowledge that they were now farther from Earth than any human had ever traveled. Lieutenant Commander Zephyr Orlov, her tactical officer, responded without looking up from his console. "We're maintaining pursuit of the Vecturian vessels. Their trail is degrading but still detectable. Estimated arrival at the Vecturian homeworld, 38 hours. And Nemesis? Core temperature stable, containment fields at optimal levels." Voss nodded and turned to her second-in-command, Commander Malik Rivera. "How's the crew holding up?" Rivera's dark eyes reflected the starlight from the view screen. as well as can be expected for people who volunteered for a suicide mission. Not suicide, Voss corrected. Sacrifice. There's a difference. Is there? Rivera asked softly. We're carrying a device designed to trigger a cascading breakdown of nuclear forces across an entire planetary system. We're about to obliterate a civilization that would do the same to us without hesitation, Voss reminded him. You've seen the intelligence reports. The Vecturians have destroyed 17 other species that they deemed unworthy of galactic citizenship. And we're about to become the 18th species to commit atrocity in this endless cycle, Rivera replied. Does that make us worthy? Voss had no answer. In the ship's mess hall, Dr. Juno Mera sat alone, reviewing data on her tablet. As the mission's xenobiologist, her role had shifted from scientific advisor to ethical conscience, a responsibility she hadn't sought. Mind if I join you? Asked Chief Engineer Talos Reed, setting down his tray. Mera gestured to the empty seat. Free galaxy. For now, Reed muttered, then nodded toward her tablet. Still looking for alternatives? The Vecturians evolved from apex predators on a resource-scarce world, Mera said. Their entire society is built around dominance hierarchies and resource acquisition, but that doesn't make them incapable of reason. They've had plenty of chances to be reasonable, Reed pointed out. They chose extermination instead. So we respond in kind? Become the very monster we're fighting? Reed leaned forward. Look, I don't like this any more than you do. But what's the alternative? Let them reach Earth with their main fleet? Watch them glass our cities one by one? Before Mera could respond, the ship-wide comm activated with Captain Voss's voice. All senior staff to the bridge. We have a situation. When they arrived, the tactical display showed what had been invisible to them before. A massive Vecturian battle fleet, hundreds of ships strong, gathered at what appeared to be a staging area. We were tracking the damaged vessels, Orlov explained. They led us straight to their rendezvous point. The entire Vecturian war machine is assembling here. They're preparing for a full-scale invasion of the Sol system, Rivera realized. Voss studied the display, her expression grim. Change of plans. Nemesis was designed for a single planetary target, but if we detonate it here, we could eliminate their capacity to wage war entirely, Orlov finished, without even approaching their civilian populations. Dr. Mera stepped forward. Captain, this changes everything. We have an opportunity to end this conflict without genocide. Deploy the weapon here, and we give the Vecturian civilians a chance to reconsider their empire's policies, Rivera added. We demonstrate our power without becoming exterminators. Voss was silent for a long moment, then nodded. Prepare Nemesis for deployment. We'll need to recalibrate for space detonation rather than atmospheric penetration. As the crew rushed to their stations, an alarm blared across the bridge. We've been detected, Orlov shouted. Multiple Vecturian vessels on intercept course. The Harbinger shuddered as the first enemy shots found their mark. Shields holding, Reed reported. But we can't take sustained fire from that many ships. Voss gripped her command chair. Time to Nemesis deployment? 8 minutes minimum, Rivera answered. We won't last that long under concentrated attack. Captain Voss stood, her decision made. Initiate Protocol Omega. The bridge crew exchanged grim looks. They all knew what Protocol Omega meant, a suicide run to ensure the mission's success. It's been an honor, Voss said simply. The Harbinger turned and accelerated directly toward the heart of the Vecturian fleet. The Harbinger plunged toward the Vecturian armada, its experimental shields flaring brilliant blue-white under sustained enemy fire. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Reed and his team worked frantically to reroute power, buying precious seconds for Nemesis to complete its arming sequence. Shields at 30%, Reed shouted over the comm. Whatever you're going to do, Captain, do it fast! On the bridge, Voss watched the tactical display with preternatural calm. The enemy vessels were arranging themselves in a classic encirclement pattern, effective against conventional adversaries, but potentially disastrous against what Harbinger carried. "Status of Nemesis?" she asked. "Arming sequence at 83%, Rivera reported. "We're still 2 minutes from deployment capability." "We don't have 2 minutes," Orlov warned. "Vecturian flagship is preparing to fire its main cannon." Dr. Mehra gripped the railing beside Voss's command chair. "Captain, I've been analyzing the Vecturian communications we've intercepted. They're broadcasting victory announcements across their fleet. They think we're making a desperate last stand." Voss's eyes narrowed. "They have no idea what we're carrying." "Precisely," Mehra said urgently. "If we could somehow communicate—" "No time," Voss cut her off. "And no guarantee they'd listen." She straightened in her chair. "Lieutenant Commander Orlov, I need a hole." Orlov understood immediately. "Targeting their formation's weakest point. All weapon systems engaging." The Harbinger's human-modified alien weaponry lashed out, concentrating fire on 3 Vecturian cruisers. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the vessel's shields collapsed simultaneously, and they disintegrated under the onslaught. "Path clear," Orlov announced. 10 seconds until we're through their perimeter." "Nemesis at 94%, Rivera reported. "Still not ready." Captain Voss made her final decision. "All power to engines, ram the flagship." No one on the bridge protested. They had all volunteered, knowing this mission might require the ultimate sacrifice. The Harbinger accelerated, streaking toward the enormous Vecturian flagship. Enemy fire intensified, tearing away chunks of the human vessel's hull. Systems failed across the ship, but its course remained true. "Impact in 5 seconds, Orlov called out. "Nemesis at 98%, Rivera said. "So close? Transfer." "Control to my station," Voss ordered. "The rest of you, get to the escape pods." Rivera stared at her. "Captain." "That's an order, Commander. Someone needs to tell Earth what happened here." Before anyone could argue further, Voss slammed her. "Hand down on the emergency evacuation control." Blast doors sealed the bridge, and throughout the ship, crew members were automatically directed to escape pods. Alone on the bridge, Captain Ilara Voss watched the massive Vecturian flagship fill her view screen. "For Mars," she whispered. "For Earth." The impact was catastrophic. The Harbinger's reinforced prow punched through the Vecturian flagship's outer hull, driving deep into its core before both vessels' reactors began to destabilize. In those final seconds, as alarms blared and systems failed around her, Voss's hand hovered over the Nemesis activation control. The device had reached 99%. A fractional second before both ships were consumed in conventional nuclear fire, she brought her hand down. The effect was nothing like a normal explosion. There was a moment of perfect stillness, a sphere of absolute silence expanding outward from the point of detonation. Then reality itself seemed to shudder. Nemesis worked by disrupting the fundamental forces that bound matter together. The effect propagated outward in a perfect sphere, dissolving everything it touched at the subatomic level. Vecturian warships simply ceased to exist, their component atoms losing cohesion and dispersing into clouds of elementary particles. From the escape pods, the surviving Harbinger crew watched in awe and horror as the entire Vecturian fleet vanished, in spreading ripples of distorted space-time. Commander Rivera stared at the view screen in silence, tears streaming down his face. "She did it," he whispered. "She actually did it." 3 weeks later, the escape pods were recovered by a hastily assembled Earth rescue mission. The survivors returned as heroes, though many would struggle with the psychological weight of what they had witnessed for the rest of their lives. 6 months passed before the Vecturian Empire sent a diplomatic envoy to Earth. The representative, not a military commander, but a civilian scientist, requested permission to land with a message from the Vecturian High Council. In the same United Nations chamber where Admiral Ryden had first briefed the World Security Council about the destruction of Mars colony, the alien envoy bowed deeply before speaking. The Vecturian Empire acknowledges its crime against your Mars colony, the translator relayed. We acknowledge your right of defense and your demonstration of power. We come not to threaten, but to propose a lasting peace. Admiral Ryden, now, serving as Earth's chief diplomatic officer for extraterrestrial affairs, studied the envoy carefully. Your empire has destroyed 17 species before us. Why should we trust you now? Because you are the first to strike back effectively, came the simple reply. Our history teaches that those who cannot defend themselves have no right to exist in this galaxy. You have proven yourselves worthy adversaries, and therefore worthy of respect. And if we refuse your peace, Ryden asked, then both our civilizations will likely perish in the war that follows, the envoy said. You destroyed our main battle fleet, but our empire spans 17 systems. You deployed one devastating weapon, but cannot yet have built many more. Mutual destruction would be the only outcome. The chamber fell silent as humanity's representatives considered their options. Finally, Imara Okafor stepped forward. We will consider your proposal, but peace requires justice. The families of Mars colony must be compensated properly, and your empire must acknowledge its crime to the galactic community. These terms are acceptable, the envoy agreed. As negotiations proceeded in the days that followed, news spread across Earth's colonies and outposts. Humanity had secured its place among the stars not through conquest, but by refusing to be conquered in fur. A memorial garden established where Mars colony once stood. A single statue dominated the landscape. Captain Ilara Voss, her face turned toward the stars, with a simple inscription beneath. They chose the wrong target. We chose a better path across the galaxy. Word spread of the species that had brought the mighty Vecturian Empire to the negotiating table. And in distant systems, other civilizations took note. Earth was not to be trifled with, yet neither had humans embraced the path of extinction that had claimed so many before them. They had walked to the edge of becoming monsters, looked into that abyss, and turned away. In the end, that was humanity's true vengeance. To remain human despite all provocation, to assert their right to exist without becoming what they fought against. The stars would remember.